Thanks, Hugh. That's right. I'm back, but this time I'm joined by the Aberdeen wild child and the sharpest cheekbones in the East, Rob Sinclair. How are you doing, Robbo?
I'm sound, Sebby.
So set
Hardly
set
in the
set the
heat,
set the
loving it.
scene. Set the scene. Where are you?
I'm currently in the flat. Managed to get out for a run this morning and just boiled the kettle for a nice cup of tea, mate.
And we were sort of having a quick discussion before the show started, but you've been doing a little bit of some, sort of classic Robbo wild training. Lockdown's gone to your head.
Yeah,
Tell me about it.
I know. Well, it'd been a busy week of work, so I haven't actually been out doing too much running. I got some hill reps done early in the week, and then a bit of road run on Thursday and stuff. So Friday, I was just knackered last night, so we went out for a walk, and then I just had tons of energy this morning. So Kirkhill's super close to where I stay here, so I just went out and did some hill reps, which kind of went a bit out of control. And the little climb turned into 40 reps up and down various little sort of mountain bike climbs. So yeah, it went above 2,000 meter point.
2,000,
so,
just over 2,000 of it's a standard Saturday morning, isn't it?
Just a classic. Like, it was the mileage was so low as well, because it was like 12. Not like I was just going for time anyway. So, but at the end of the session, I think the stats was like 2,300 meters in 12 miles, which is low.
That's
ridiculous.
I mean? Yeah, that's ridiculous.
The gradient we're working with there is it is runnable, but you're also like, you can power hike up that pretty much almost at the same speed as you're running it.
Oh man!
So you wouldn't be running up that in a race unless you were probably doing a VK, or like a shorter sort of sky race.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. God, I've got to come up when all this lifts and do one of those sessions. 12 miles or 2,000 meters of vert. Whoa.
Yeah, but you'd be down the mountain bike, man. You'd be like you'd be cycling up it with your quads of
Still got nothing on Donny though on the old quad front.
yeah, he is the quad king. Like,
so how's everything going with the lockdown? How are you finding it?
Yeah, it's okay. Well, where I work, we're classed as for some reason we're classed as essential with the energy sector, so it's in the oil that I work. So we are still going into the workshop Monday to Friday. There's no overtime or anything, but we're just busy preparing systems to get sent out to boats and oil rigs and stuff. So it's been, to be honest, apart from all the classic hand washing and all that sort of stuff, it's been it's been quite a good routine, because I don't think I've really felt the true effects that a lot of people have been going through, with the home isolation and things. You know what I mean? Kind of like yourself with the studying and stuff. You're able to still get out and enjoy the fresh air and things as well. I did contemplate getting a paddling pool and like some bungee cords and doing some swimming in the back garden, but I just that idea got thrown out the window. Like, it wasn't allowed to.
But you have been doing some slightly different stuff in the back garden, have you not? Something with a hammer and a tire or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I used to stay out back at home, my dad, he's always been mental into his fitness and stuff. He was quite a good sort of local amateur level kickboxer. So he's got all these crazy ideas with training and stuff, which is kind of where a lot of the stuff that I've done in the last 10 plus years has come from. And he had us training with a massive big tractor tire at some points years ago. So we've actually managed to get the tire when he was coming in to do some work in Aberdeen one day. We got the tire to Aberdeen, and yeah, it's been keeping the neighbours up at night. Let's say that. It's been a lot of tire flips and hammer slaps and stuff. But
is something you're going to keep, once things kind of lift again, or what do you reckon? Or is that just something to keep the interest?
Yeah, it's just pure. It's because I've done these sort of plyometric based sort of style workouts before and things. So it is a shock to the body, but it's not too much of what I've not been used to. It took a few sessions to get used to it again, but I think anything that is, it's mostly all leg focused, all the different moves that I'm doing. So, and it's a real workout you can get in like even half an hour. I mean, I do about an hour plus sort of most times, but you're getting good bang for buck with what you're doing.
Do you ever do any? Do you only do any like more kind of like standard stuff like S&C and core and stuff? I feel like we discussed it before, but I can't remember.
Well, remember over before winter, you'd sent some of the stuff about the band work you were doing, the resistance bands. So when I was going through the whole sort of faster I think it was 12 or 14 weeks block of just faster stuff in the weeks and then faster trail sessions on Saturdays and Sundays. That was something I was doing a couple of times a week, but it was net because my mileage was quite high, like some weeks was above 80 miles some of the time. So I wasn't wanting to put too much extra strain on that, but I've got like a little like plyo board that for various balances and stuff on that get recommended from the physio to do. And it's to be honest though, I don't really do since the last like year, I haven't focused on really doing any heavier weights or stuff. Like what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I do a bit. It depends on the time of the year. Like when you're not racing, I think you can get away with being in the gym and doing some like heavier stuff and really like smashing your quads. And like I think certainly because a lot of the time, obviously, I'm in Liverpool and it's pan flat, and you just can't condition the quads to the hills. But like something that you can do is do some like heavy like single leg weight, whether it's step ups or whether it's split squats or something. And I think that's quite a good way of conditioning the quads. So like I do that, but I'm never gonna go in the gym in the summer and do like real heavy weight because it just shreds your legs, and then you're just not going to get the quality in the sessions, are you?
No, and when you try to run after you've done like a gym session, I've got some pals that do S&C, but they're quite into their triathlon stuff and things, so it's all in their part of their structured plan. But for us, if we're going out and doing a few hours in the hills and you've done like some harder weights before it, you just don't enjoy the hills the same. Like it's not, I know it's good to do things that are good to keep you injury free and that, but most of the time, like I'll train really hard at certain times, but a lot of the time you're just wanting to do things that are
for sure,
fun, and like enjoying big days out with mates and stuff, and like some of the sessions we've done together and things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
You want to be enjoying the process, not just like killing yourself all the time and forcing yourself to do
exactly.
What's
the point? Life's too short, and I think that's why you're going to get the most out of it, aren't you? If you're enjoying it, that's when you get the most out of it. Like thinking about some of the runs we've done together, it's like been some actually like really good quality as well, just because it's a heck of a lot of fun.
Exactly. And you don't have to be like it's not like I'm doing a 90-minute steady run and this is you don't really care about the pace all the time and things. You're just out flowing around, and it's a good cruise, some good laughs.
I think that's maybe what people are probably struggling with a little bit at the moment. If they're people are used to I know you said it to me, I'm used to training with other people sometimes, and you're like, you're like dying right now, like just being on your own all the time, just training on your own. It's quite hard. It's also motivating yourself on your own. Can be tricky, can't it?
How are you finding it then with where you are just now? Like tell people where
I'm very, very antisocial usually. So actually it doesn't really make much difference to me. We've talked about it before. I mean, it's nice I find it nice to link up with people like yourself to run, but I've spent the vast majority of my life training on my own, either on the bike. We used to train with my brother a lot, but Hamish and I we always train together a lot, but with the running I do nearly all of my training on my own. So actually being out in the middle of nowhere where I am, no, it doesn't change a huge amount for me, but I think it affects other people, more. People that are used to, people like used to going to the gym, having a social and all that sort of thing, no longer have that.
Yeah, exactly. Like most people will. I don't. It's just such a crazy unknown time, is it? Like we're lucky to still get out to do a little bit of what we enjoy, without taking the biscuit too much. We're still fairly isolated, but we're also, like you're not going to have to stop your running or your whatever sport you want to do. You still have to, like, there's always bigger things going on in the world. We can't control that, but you still have to do things that you enjoy, and want to do. You can't stop that just because of what's going on. You just have to control it a bit better.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, actually. And just sort of before we move on and talk a little bit more about you and kind of what you've done and where you're going, like, we've talked about, we had some sweet plans lined up, didn't we? And
yeah,
and obviously they've all gone down the toilet. And we were discussing it, weren't we? Because races have been pushed back into sort of August, September, October, and this will be the same for a lot of people, won't it? That had races now that are all getting condensed into sort of 2 or 3 months. I mean, what do you think of all that?
I feel like it's going to be just a super compressed time for the race calendar for every different discipline of running. It's just going to be I think it's going to be overload. Like your and me's plans was to get absolutely beasted up for kind of starting racing and balancing the whole race recover routine for a few months, starting sort of the start of June after a good trip to Alsace. But like, now people are going to have a long time to maybe work on a lot of things before then, and there's going to be a very short window to race, and there might be a chance people get carried away. But I think if people just stick to like picking their original race that we're going to do in that time frame, then like it's realistic, and it's only fair on the people who had their races then. They shouldn't have to change their plans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you see, obviously the racing we do, it takes a lot out of the body, and the races obviously they're all getting pushed back. I'm just wondering if the fields are going to end up being weaker as a result, because people are going to be like, I'll go to that one, I'll go to the other one, and therefore every race has got a slightly weaker field, and then it's going to be disappointing. And it's like, and I mean, there was I had a message off one of the people involved in the British mountain running, and she was saying, is it even fair to sort of be holding races this year now? I'm not just talking about UK based, but foreign races, because she said, if you look at some countries, so we're all right. You're saying, you're still out doing your training, I'm still out doing my training, but in some of these other countries, like some of these people haven't been outside training. So therefore, is it actually right to be holding mountain worlds? Europeans have got postponed or moved to next year, but say you hold mountain worlds, is that really fair, given some people have been able to train outside and train normally, and other people have just been stuck inside? I mean, it's a tricky one. I'm not really quite sure what
I know
if it with it all, but I guess time will tell, won't it? And time will tell what we end up doing and what actually happens. But one way or the other, we've got to get into the mountains, haven't we, when it frees out?
Definitely. If people can just kind of reconfigure their brains to think how they can just use, I think you're right. If they cancel all the big events, like for like so what, like Angela was saying, for the mountain logs and the Snowdon champs and everything have all been kind of moved back, and they're looking at alternative races, all that sort of stuff. Like things need to there needs to be a fair playing field, doesn't there? But if people can just use this time to work on fitness more than anything, and just come back next year, and that's maybe the best way. Just write off this year and just focus on fun projects.
Yeah, no, definitely. I talked about that a bit in in the previous pod, which
Yeah.
you obviously haven't been listening, Rob. Poor show.
No, I know. It's shocking. Like I was saying that to you earlier. You need to get me linked into this the maximum Seb chat. Like,
But anyway, well, that's enough of the coronavirus and all that rubbish.
I know. It's like in every other podcast, it's destroying everyone's podcast.
So
like,
let's rewind a bit. Let's rewind the Rob Sinclair timeline. So I mean, you've been around a little bit now, but not that long.
Yeah, I'm getting old, mate. I'm getting on.
Are you older than me? Are you old? How?
I'm getting wrinkly.
How old?
I turned 30 last year. What are you again?
I'm still in my 20s, mate.
Yeah, you still got youth in you, man.
Yeah, like, I'm just gonna keep quiet. I'm 30 in like a month, but it doesn't matter. Right?
I know. You've still got like you could do a VK and then still do like 6 Jaeger bombs and then bomb all the way back down and stuff. You still, if I did that, I'd collapse now.
But I mean, you started out in the long stuff. So what was it that really drew you to that?
Well, I was doing. Remember sending you the videos of my pal Mike, who was doing his isolation ultras to raising money for the NHS. Well, before that, I was doing like tons of different sports from a young age. Always like swimming, football was a huge thing. I tried a bit of tennis. So there was like loads of different things going on. And then when I got to like maybe 19 or 20, I decided to knock football in the head. I kept it going a bit and did some social stuff just with mates, but I just started like gradually doing some sort of hillier runs, and I just liked going onto the trails. And like it just all kind of took off from there, and it was always it was just like a good challenge, eh? And then after building up base for ages, and you back then you didn't really know what building base was and stuff, but you probably were building an aerobic base from a younger age, with all the different trainings combining together. And then I think it was, I don't know when I did my first. I did like a hill race up here. It's not really hilly, but it's called the Laragru, and I did that a few years in a row, and I just chipped away at it. I think the first year it's like just over a marathon, and I think the first year I was 10th.
But did you hang on? I'm just going to stop. Did you just dive in on a race just over a marathon, or what?
Yeah. Well, I'd done when I was doing all like my different sort of football and sports and stuff. I was doing like some like the Inverurie 10K and things, like local things. I did a couple of like half marathons on the road and stuff, but it was never, I wasn't as part of a running club or anything. It was just to supplement training for football and things like that. There wasn't like, I just really enjoyed like logging it every week and building up and things. Like there was never like block structure or anything, you're just so naive and just kind of diving into it. But then when I decided to, I think I joined the Geary Roadrunners. Oh man, I don't know what year it was. It was a little while ago now. Then when you're like surrounded by all these other runners, they're telling you that, like they've done the Mont Blanc Marathon and various big races, and you get kind of exposed to all these crazy things, and you're like, what on earth is this run and stuff? And you go out for the long social runs and talk about it. And then a few months later, I managed to get place, I think in the Laragru, which was over a marathon. So yeah, I did just for my first like actual race as if you want to even class yourself like that as a runner, I just went straight in and did like just over a marathon. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I guess I did kind of dive into the bigger stuff, man.
And like in the build up to that, you said you weren't even classifying yourself as a runner. Like, were you actually doing some consistent training, or was it just literally just going off the back of being, pretty fit from your other sports?
I knew I could probably run a marathon and stuff, and like it was purely through the Geary Roadrunners. Like they're like a road running club, but they mostly train kind of out at the local hills and stuff. And each week they were structuring. You like now you look back and you were just going with the flow, but they had the structure was right. Like the Tuesday social run, the Thursday was like a rep session. for 45 minutes, just various like 400s or uphill repeats and stuff. And then you just use that, and then you had like a long run on the weekend. You do a social, and then I just went to that stuff for a few months consistently, randomly place a week before that race, and then that just ever since I did that, I was just totally hooked on the actual how it all structured together, basically. But to give you a bit of a put it all in context, like my granddad, he passed away the start of this year, but one of my granddads was like an absolute master of the Munros. He did the Scottish Munros, like, I don't know, 3 times over or something. I know, all the Corbett's, the Grahams, and and he's been all over the world cycling, and he did a few hill races back in his time, and so did his dad. So like from a young age, we did camping trips, and he was always dragging us up McDewey and the local like Knock Hill and all that sort of thing. And so like I've always kind of been around the hills and loved being outdoors. So as soon as I had the challenge of like running in it, I just was like just soaking in it. I just loved it. It was ace.
And is that why you think you went to the longer? Because it's just like, I love being out, and the longer races just mean I can be out in the mountains more, and the training is kind of a little bit less about the specifics and the intervals and more about just logging some big mileage. Do you think?
Exactly, pal. Exact. Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head. I would say that is bang on. Like,
and you've done. Am I right in thinking that you hold the record for like every sort of conceivable race that goes along the West Highland Way? Is that about right?
Well, that was in 2016 or 17.
Is it called the triple or something like that?
It's called. Yeah, it's got like it's a totally unofficial like thing that some people like to try and get, but it's called the Triple Crown, and you do the first part of the West Highland Way, which is the Highland Fling, but they're all races in themselves, and like the second race is the West Highland Way, this is a few months, well, it's not long after, it's like April till June.
Is that the full length?
The Devil.
Yeah, the second one's full length.
Yeah, so you do, the first one is 53 miles, and then the second one is like 40, I think it's 43 miles, which is the Devil. But you do the West Highland, you do it all like, so they're basically almost like 6 or 7 weeks apart between the races. So it's
hell's bells.
Yeah, it was the last one. Yeah, but to be fair though, the last one, man, like my legs were minced even showing up on the start line. I just hung in.
But did you get course record as well on that one?
Yeah, I by like, I think I got Casey and Donnie had run it the year before as a pair, and I think they just I don't know if they were pushing each other. They just cruised it, quite a solid cruise, I think, and they came over the line together, and I think I was only like a minute quicker than their time. So I mean, it is a record.
Yeah,
but it's not.
Yeah,
really,
well, it still counts, doesn't it? Take it. It
still counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like obviously by that point, you're obviously a bit of a beast when it comes to the distance, because to me, like, doing that in a short pace of time, even just doing the West Highland Way on its own, geez, I mean, that's a heck of a distance. And like something that
it's long.
It's long. And something that Hugh's quite interested in, and which is, is an interesting point, is sort of, was there a point in time, obviously you started out running, did the Larry Group, building up to it, was there a point in time when you're like, I've made the step up to feeling like I've kind of got into the higher echelons of running, and now I can kind of, I'm mixing it with elites, I'm setting the course records at some of these kind of iconic British races? Or is it just a matter of time, belief in yourself, or a combination of factors? Like, what was it that pushed you to be, obviously you've won an awful lot as well, Lakes Ultra and that, which is impressive, and GB stuff.
It's like before it, I did other couple of ultras in Scotland, and I built myself, and then I went away on like a Salomon camp as well to Annecy, and that wasn't like didn't race that run. It was actually with Jonesy, and like he was sleeping on the trails.
Jonesy, for anyone that doesn't know, is Mike Jones. That he's more doing the the race director stuff these days. Does Ultra Trail Snowdonia and it's Snowdon and Skyline, isn't it? Yeah. So you were out there with Jonesy. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, like, and it was a group of us, and we did like a training week with a few of the Salomon folk and that, and it was good. It was good. It was just a good. It was just a good laugh and that, and then you didn't have to do the race at the end, which was I can't remember. I think it's about 100.
Was it the maxi? Is it the
70
maxi
odd miles? Yeah, it was like maxi trail thinking. It was about 120 or 30k, and we just agreed to do it as part of like the training week, and we just cruised around, and I think it took us like 22 hours or something.
Oh, that's not good. Hallucination and all that going on?
No. I was okay, but Jonesy was slammed, man. He was down. he was sleeping on the trail. Like, we stopped for ice creams. Like, he was absolutely binned. Like, and then just to top it off, when we finished and had like a half pint, like, I don't know if I should say this or not, but he drove back, and it was so funny because he like reversed the van. It was like one of the Salomon vans, and he like scraped it all up the fence, and it was like totally, and like nobody had the stomach to tell him until we got out, and then he had to confess.
Oh, poor Jonesy. It sounds like he's in the wars. You basically put him through hell for 22 hours, and then he scraped up the team car.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, it was good times. But yeah, like, to go. Sorry to like go off the point a bit, but
good story.
I'd done like a 55-mile race here, and I'd done like a 33, and I think I knew going into the West Highland Way year. I just knew, because like I wasn't doing like conventional training, to be honest with you. It was everything I was doing was on the trails or on the hills. Like I don't really go around and bash the roads like most of the local people here. And like that I was saying to you, like the most road running I'd ever done was during the winter block here, when I couldn't get away anywhere skiing. So I was like, well, I'll just work on speed, because it's something that I don't do a lot. And yeah, it was just I guess you're right, like a belief. I just knew that I could get to the end no matter what. But it did. I look at like what it was like then as a person, and even in like your fitness and things. And goodness me, like I would class myself now as like way fitter and stronger than I was when I did the West Highland Way, which kind of scares me a little bit, because I think like, wow, like I wonder if I was to do it again, like what I could actually achieve. But then you need all the stars to align.
Yeah, but also, do you think part of it's being slightly naive? Like, if you're going in not really knowing that in some ways 100%, that can actually help, because you're not 100% sure. Well, you don't really know how much pain you're going to be in or how much it's going to hurt, so you just kind of do it. Yeah. Whereas now you're looking at it and you know what it's like to go the best part of 100 miles. Yeah, it's full gas, and you're like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. You I could maybe set out and be like, I could be like maybe an hour up on my time by like 60, 70 miles and just absolutely bin the last bit of it and just bonk out. You never know. That's the beauty of the longer distance. Like you never stepping into the unknown when you are naive is a cool sort of experience, and you just don't know what levels you're capable of for that. But I mean, like 96 miles, it is long when you compare it to the stuff like that we've been doing in the last year or two. It definitely puts in perspective when you start racing harder and shorter. But it's still, it's up there with being in longer ultras. But there's people who are doing like 160-mile ultras, 200-mile. Like the real nitty gritty of ultra stuff is, I think, once you start getting up above 100 and you're doing like the Pacific Crest Trail or like the Lake Tahoe 200 and all that ones that like Courtney DeWalter and things are doing, like those are the real, like, and like said, another race in the UK, the Lakeland 100, that would be a beast to do. The Lakeland 50 even would be good to give it a good bit of beans.
Yeah, well, it's like Jonesy's races as well, isn't it? He's running the 50 and 100. God. I mean, with God knows how much vertical gain, it makes your 2000 look pathetic. what's that got? Like something like 10,000 or something absolutely bonkers. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's a certain mindset, though, isn't it? You know, like these massive races, like huge distance, huge vert. But you've like obviously moved, as you say, slightly towards the shorter stuff now. And what was the sort of thinking behind that? How come you've kind of gone down your distance a little bit more into the kind of the sky racing and stuff? Why
the year after the West Highland Way, I honestly, that sort of year, I reckon after it took me until I remember doing like a 50k race in the lakes a year later, and I was actually able to, for the first time, like actually smash into like decent pace for like whatever that is, 30 odd miles. And I remember feeling during
was that the Lake Sky Ultra one? Is that
no, that was a different one. I think it's like an Adidas Terex 50k. Okay. It's like a festival. It's one of Charlie Sproson's races in the lakes, and it was like a flatter 50k. I think it's got maybe 1,500 meters to climb, but that was the first time I raced since like August the year before. So that took me till June. I honestly think it took me months to like physically and mentally just recover from doing so much long stuff over that year. Like I think I think I just went like over the edge of like overtraining. I think I definitely
you sort of pushed a bit too far. And I think that's quite interesting because with the running, like, because obviously, you know, I've come from cycling background, and I find with the running, you know, even the races that, you know, I'm doing, that kind of what you're more doing, like marathon kind of maximum stuff, the toll it takes on the body is colossal. Because like now, like I feel like I can do a handful of races. You know, if you're going into, obviously, sometime, you know, we talk about races you're going to target and whether you're going to just do a couple of tune-ups. Like I'm kind of more of the mindset that when I take the start line, I'm in top shape and I'm going to try and win it.
Yeah, it's a great mindset to have.
I can do that. Yeah, I think I can do that, like, you know, only a handful of times in a 12-month period. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think back to just because of the physical toll on the body. And but when going back to the cycling, to the mountain biking, you know, we used to race like 15, 16, 17 times a year, and every time you go full gas. Like, and you know, you could race like 3 weekends on the trot, 4 weekends in the trot, and even though you're absolutely cooked at the finish line, it's just like the impact, and it's just the level of kind of suffering that you go through in these mountain running races that's just, it's not comparable. And I think, you know, when people are coming in that are, I know, a little bit less experienced, and they're looking at what races to do, they might, I'll do that one, I'll do that one. And I, you know, as you know, I always get like, quite often get asked like my opinion on stuff. I'm like, geez, no way, because, you know, like, you know, people are like, I want to do that, and then a couple of weeks later I'm going to do that. It's like, wait, hang on a minute. So you want to do a 30k followed by a marathon, followed by a 50k like 2 weeks after that? You know, you'll be on your knees. It's a bit like, it's what we were talking about, you know, at the top of the show with all the races getting condensed, because I had a lot of discussion with Hugh earlier in the year about the new, you know, UK Golden Trail.
We don't know what's happening with that. And now we need to find out what's. We know some of the races.
We do need to get to the bottom of that, but you know, he got moved, hasn't it? You know, the 50k, the Serpent Trail's got moved to the week after the Scafell Marathon, and I look at it and I just think, if you know the body, and unless you're Killian, who seems to be able to race 100 mile 1 week and then be fine the next week, but you know, there's no one else that can do that. But if you think of the body, and no way can you race full gas mountain marathon. I know we've discussed this before, haven't we? No way you can race a mountain marathon full gas and then the next weekend race full gas over a 50k. It just, the body's just shot to pieces, isn't it?
And that combo will be probably, if you're going like 85-90% effort, you know, racing close up to the, you know, lactate levels, you're going to be pretty wrecked after that for a couple of weeks to come back, you know. And then there would be the Ring of Steel, and like obviously I've got Kima booked a week after it, if that even goes ahead. So I mean, that would be just to come back to the calendar thing. Imagine like wanting to try and have all those races initially as your A races spread around a month apart anyway is a good like spread, and you could give it beans, but like have them all a week after each other. I mean, you can't. And
Yeah, it's not possible, but that's again different to again how it was on the bike,
yeah, you
because
probably have maybe
in
done
the
that
previous show it
sometime.
talked about
Yeah.
peaking and stuff. Yeah, but we used to do that. So it used to be like, okay, well, there's a couple of races back to back, or there's 2 races within 3 weeks, and they're both really important. And you're like, that's absolutely ideal, because it means that you can just build to one peak and you can carry that peak through for a week or two. Whereas, like with the running, you're like, okay, great, I'm going to come to a peak, but there's absolutely no hope in hell that I'm putting 2 back to back big races together, because your body is just shreds. It's the same like at the end of the year, the Ring of Steel, and then the weekend after they've moved the 3 peaks to the weekend after that. So you got back to back there for anyone wanting to do those 2. And it's like, imagine coming off Ring of Steel, slamming down them, and then going to run 3 peaks.
Is that what they've confirmed?
No
3
chance.
peaks to move to then?
Okay. Yeah. So 3 peaks is now the qualification.
Yeah, the marathon's changed. Okay.
Qualifying for Mountain Worlds, if that even goes ahead. But no, yeah, you're right about the toll that it takes on the body. I mean, like, what do you find the fallout is from these mountain races, even the shorter ones?
I think as I've stepped down a bit, it's not because I don't want to do anything like super long anymore and that. I mean, still got routes and mountain days that you do that are like 8 hours long, 4 hours big. Like days are still big, like what did like me and I joined Donnie, and we did one of the sort of more unknown mountain rounds up here called the Rigby Round, and it took us like a lot of it was a lot of hiking, running in between, but the terrain is pretty remote, and we did like I think it was like 21 or 2 hours it took us to do. You know what I mean? Right through. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I honestly, because of the pace we were going and the amount that you were fueling, like I'm not joking, buddy. Like the recovery from that, it took me. I think I had a bath that night when we'd finished, and the next day or 2 I was kind of stiff. But then after that, I'd adapted quite well. So I reckon the training for the shorter stuff does still keep you, because you're still logging, like say some weeks you're able to say you're consistently doing like 10-12 hour weeks. If the bigger weeks that you've got time off work or whatever, and you're doing 15-20 hour weeks, I think you're still conditioning yourself to do longer. You just have to, your economy will improve, so then you're able to go longer for using less energy. I think it's just like you say, it's a mindset thing, and believing that you can actually do like the project you want to do, or the whatever the long race you want to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And talking about your training and stuff, how have you kind of evolved and adapted that? Because we talked a bit about bringing some more specific intervals into your training, and like how have you changed that since
ever
the last
since,
few years?
Was it last? I think it was like last summer. When we ran, I think we ran in like Lawyers, and was it April or May? Yeah,
April.
After that, when you were going on about certain VO2 sessions, like we were getting into the nitty gritty of stuff, and I've went through like a lot of that stuff with Donnie as well, and like certain types of sessions to do, like your 8x3s and your 6x5s and all that stuff. Like I think incorporating them into, like last summer, there was a lot of experimenting for me with that, and I had no structure on last year. I was jumping between racing 1 week here, 1 week there, like 1 week I was in Scotland. Like, I was fortunate enough, I was moving jobs, so I had a couple of weeks off in between things, and I was in Italy racing after a training week, then China, then like Scotland, and doing like a few Munro rounds and big days, and then local hill races, and like I think you have to you have to have some base structure to your week, or else you just get totally carried away into, you know, like how you've got quite a good structured week, don't you? I like.
Yeah, it's like we, you know, anyone that listened to the last podcast, it's quite a lot of talk on training structure and kind of the importance of a plan, really, because, you know, I think, again, anyone will be bored of it that listened to the last one, but you know, you need, you know what? I know, yeah. Geez, shut up about this.
I'd be pretty surprised if anyone's got 43.5 minutes into this anyway, you know.
Yeah. Anyone that's made
Congrats.
This far, you've done well. But it's what was I going to say? You know, if you don't plan and you don't think about your training, how do you know when you're going to peak and when you're going to get your best performance? You know, you bit like you're saying last year, it's like you're going from one thing to the next. It's like, well, you know, that all that's going to mean is that you're going to turn out a performance at a random point. And that might be great because it might happen to fall when you want to go really well. Or it might be just at some time and you're like, well, what the hell was the point in going really well there? But I know you did some like crazy races last year. You mentioned China there.
Yeah, that was like just one. We got the chance to go on a Salomon trip there, and
we being you.
Yeah, there was I don't know how much people actually got sort of. I don't know, how did you get a shout about that, or were you able to apply for it as well? Remember?
Yeah, I was not putting my name down for China, mate.
I just again totally naively just said yes, thinking, oh, this would be cool. We'll just go to China and pretty much get off the plane, go somewhere local. But it was crazy. It was like 7 days, but it was about maybe 3, like with the jet, with the time differences and stuff. It was like 3 days of just pure bus journeys, planes. It was, you know, by the time you actually got to the start line, you were absolutely knackered. You know what I mean? Like, I think I managed to churned out like a 4th place, and I was like spewing all the way around the race and everything. It was but it was a disaster. I hung on to I can't remember his name, but he's like he's just a nutter. He's some Japanese guy, I think, called Koji something, but he's like a 2:12 marathoner, and he went off just rapid as hell. And I thought, I'll just hang out with this guy and just see what.
What was the distance? What was the race distance?
75k, I think. So, like, but it starts above. I think it started above 2,000 meters, and a lot of the race was above 3,000, and then you came down near the end and then went back up. So I was already tired, but I was like, screw it. This is just going to be a solid training race. So I just hung on for him for like the first sort of hour and a half, and then I just started to feel absolute gash. I don't know if it was the altitude or not, but I couldn't eat basically, and it took me like 7 hours to do the race, and I just felt rubbish. But I'd accepted in my brain that it was a training race anyway, so it was just a cool experience, like looking back on it. But during the times I was being sick, it was just grotty. Like, you just got to man up and get it done, though. Yeah, you were saying to me about plans for training and stuff, and I know you like to talk about different training sessions, and you covered that in the last podcast. But what's like you when you're planning out your blocks and things, and you're looking towards the summer, like for especially things now a bit up in the air, but how are you approaching like phasing your blocks of stuff? Are you thinking like in 2-month cycles, or are you thinking in like, how are you looking at the longer game at the moment?
Yes, I mean, I think you also got to take into account whenever you're doing training phases, you also have to take into account what other things you're doing. So like when I was racing the bike full time, didn't have to think about that, so you could plan everything perfectly. Obviously, at the moment, I'm coming into exams, so I've got to take that into consideration. But as I talked about in the last pod, I think there's no reason why you can't phase your training as you would do normally. And all you're going to end up doing is, because obviously that when training, it has to go in steps. You're going to get fitter, and then you're obviously going to lose some fitness, because if you keep pushing, you're just going to get fatigued. So when you rest, you're going to go to a peak, and then you're going to rest a little bit more to make sure that you're not overly tired, and you're going to lose a little bit of fitness. But then the next time you start training again, you're starting from a higher point, aren't you?
Yeah.
So therefore, the next time you peak is going to be even higher. The second peak is higher. So really, like, I think, like, when I'm phasing my training, I'm not phasing my training any differently now than I would do during like a winter where you haven't got any races anyway. Yeah. So you're spending kind of, your time doing your base stuff. So whether you're doing a couple of weeks of decent mileage, you're then having an easier week, you're then doing a couple more weeks of big mileage and then an easier week, and then you start building in a little bit less mileage or a little bit less hours, what have you, and then with higher intensity, because that's obviously, you know that once you put in that base hours, you're talking about putting in that massive aerobic base, and then you put some sessions on top. I think from what you say, I think you probably have to be careful of not just doing high intensity all the time.
100%.
Because I know you like mixing it up and you like doing those intensity sessions, but if you do them all the time, then you're not, your training isn't falling into phases anymore. I think you have to acknowledge the fact that right now, if you've been doing like sessions for, say, like a couple of weeks, and I know you've been doing them for longer, but say if you had only been doing them for a couple of weeks, if you continue doing them, all that's going to happen is you're going to maintain a level. So at some point you're going to have to be like, right, I'm going to reduce my hours a little bit. I'm going to increase the intensity of my sessions even higher, like make them harder for like a week or like 10 days or something. And then actually force yourself to rest, because it's when you do that rest, your body's going to absorb everything. You're going to get fitter.
That's something I heard the other day that was so. You always speak about people saying, "Oh, you have to have a down week" and all these things, and it was actually relating to it was like the stress on your body and what like your standard week looks like in terms of work and studying and all that stuff. And it's like your body. What was it? The guy said it was like your body knows stress. It doesn't know miles. And I thought that was a really good saying.
Yeah,
like you've got to know where you can't, if you're like this week, for instance, I've been working outside in the yard, like, as you know, and I've been busy every day and stuff. So naturally, I know from years gone by, if I want to try and go out every night for 90-minute sessions, doing whatever, easy runs, steady runs, all that sort of things, I know that I just burn myself into the ground. So you have to cut back, increase the rest nights and things, and just make the sessions that you do go out a little bit more, just makes them a bit more quality. You're not like hanging in just to get it done. You're enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you have to acknowledge the point of where there's no point pushing things further, because there's no point in going out and running or trying to run a session and just be knackered and having poor quality. Before far more benefit in acknowledging the fact that you're getting tired and that your body needs a rest, and therefore resting, and therefore coming back stronger. Like, I'm coming off the back of an easy week. This week I felt like crap because I've done so much training. It felt really bad because I'm coming off the back of a lot of training. But you just have to acknowledge the fact, or know your body, that if you do rest, you will feel good again. I think a lot of people get worried, don't they? They start getting tired and they're like, "Oh, I feel rubbish," and then they think, "Actually, I feel rubbish. I need to train more." It's complete opposite.
Yeah, it's the mindset, isn't it? It's like you think you're failing yourself or you're a pussy because you're having a rest night, and if you compare, you just have to look back. I mean, I don't use Strava or any of those things for the last few years, because I just log everything down, and I take a little note in the book of like when I felt like shit or when I felt a bit injured or something, and you can kind of get a pattern. You get a pattern. It always, if you look back like in longer chunks of time, you can definitely see patterns of when you get niggles more, because you've not had a recovery week, or you've pushed. Like, we used to be doing the Wednesday speed sessions in the wintertime, and some nights, like this was on a night after a full day of work, some of those sessions, man, were coming up to like with the warm up, the steady run out, doing the reps, and then the run home. Some of them, man, were like 22 miles. You know what I mean? Like, and
yeah, that's big.
you can do that for a few weeks. You can stress the body, recover. But I was noticing towards the end of that block, like I'd set myself a goal that I was going to do it for 3 months. But I was noticing towards the end of it that I was like, shit, man, like I'm getting faster. And I'm feeling stronger. But this is not sustainable. You have to cycle it, and like,
Exactly. And you think you have to know the point of where, you want to take your body to the edge, but not over it. And I think that only comes to experience, doesn't it, as well? You don't know until you probably once or twice gone over that edge, and then you're like, I pushed it too far.
Like it's the same with showing up for races. If you beat yourself in training, there's no point in beating yourself too much in training, because you can show up and you're not going to be able to give your best. That's what's so good about your outlook on just having, like, when you made your major transition to running, and you did a few races, but then you really focused on the scaffold race a couple of years ago. Like that was a big race for you. You really wanted to give it everything. I remember watching your little head going round with your dad. We were like your dad, and we were like watching your head go around the course, and like you were chasing down the Albatross and Big Evans, like, and it was good to watch. I mean, it was decent. You could tell you were giving it some beans. It was ace.
Yeah, but I think I prefer to race like that anyway.
Yeah.
If you're going out and putting yourself on the start line, then going to give it everything. But
no, it's good.
Anyway, we could probably talk for hours.
Yeah,
Rob.
no, it's mental.
We've had a good chat.
But
so, thanks for your time.
Cheers, man.
Well, there we have it. That was my good friend and fellow Salomon runner, Rob Sinclair. I always find it interesting chatting to Rob. We can talk for a long time. As you can tell, he's a very interesting chap, and he very, very modest with what he's achieved, and he's a great runner, wonderful runner. Watch out for him in the future. He comes down to the shorter distances, it's back down to kind of more what I race. I think he's going to turn out some great performances, and as we discussed, I think he can really tune in, nail his training a little bit better, and I think he'll come on considerably from where he is now, and that's quite a frightening prospect for me. I mean, he's a teammate, but we still race against each other. Great athlete, interesting chap, and hope you enjoyed that. And here's Hugh.